I get it. UVE scrolled through a dozen 4K gaming monitors, all flashing HDR, 144Hz, quantum dot, and you're left wondering if any of them actually live up to the hype when you finally plug them into your rig. I've been there, staring at glossy product photos that promise buttery smooth gameplay, only to end up with a display that looks flat, or a color gamut that never quite matches the creative work you do. That hesitation is real, especially when you're about to drop $3,000 or $4,000 on a single piece of hardware. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Acer Predator X27 is marketed as the ultimate blend of high-resolution gaming and professional-grade color fidelity, and it does a lot of that well. First off, the 27-inch IPS panel gives you a true 3840x2160 canvas, which means you can see more of the battlefield in an FPS or sit closer to a photo editing timeline without squinting. The quantum dot layer pushes the color depth to 10-bit, and Acer claims 99% of the Adobe RGB space and a solid DCI-P3 coverage. In practice, that translates to richer reds and more nuanced shadows when you're editing raw images, and when you're gaming, the environments feel more immersive. Think neon-lit streets in Cyberpunk or the subtle foliage tones in Red Dead Redemption II. Now, the GSync Ultimate badge isn't just a marketing buzzword. It actually means the monitor has a full-range HDR module that can hit a peak brightness of 1000 nits, paired with a hardware-level variable refresh that eliminates tearing and stutter. If you have an RTX 3080 or newer, you'll see the benefit instantly. The game's frame rate locks to the monitor's refresh, and the HDR metadata is applied frame by frame. I tried it with Metro Exodus on ultra settings, and the contrast between dark alleyways and bright streetlights was noticeably more dynamic than on a standard 144Hz panel. The overclock to 144Hz is another headline feature, but it's worth noting the nuance. The panel's native refresh is 120Hz, and Acer lets you push it an extra 24Hz via DisplayPort. In real-world testing, the higher rate feels smoother in fast-paced shooters, but the difference is subtle compared to a native 144Hz TN or VA panel. You'll also notice a slight increase in input latency when you're hitting the overclocked mode, which might matter to competitive players who track every millisecond. For most gamers, the jump from 120 to 144 Hz is a nice polish rather than a game-changing upgrade. So who should actually consider spending the premium on this monitor? If you're a content creator who needs both 4K resolution and a wide color gamut for video grading, photo retouching, or 3D work, the X27's combination of IPS uniformity and quantum dot accuracy is a genuine time-saver. The monitor can be calibrated to hit target color values without a massive drift, which is something you rarely get on cheaper 4K panels that rely on 8-bit panels and limited gamut. Pair that with the ability to run at 120 Hz for smoother timeline scrubbing, and you have a workstation that doubles as a solid gaming display. On the gaming side, the X27 shines for players who want high-resolution immersion without sacrificing frame rate entirely. If you have a top-tier GPU that can sustain 60 to 80 frames per second at 4K in the latest titles, the GSync Ultimate implementation will keep the experience fluid and tear-free. The HDR performance is also a differentiator. The 1000 nit peak gives you a more cinematic look that many lower-priced 4K monitors simply can't deliver. In short, it's a good fit for enthusiasts who already own a high-end rig and want a single screen that can handle both gaming and creative work. However, there are clear reasons to walk away. The first and most obvious is price. The Predator X27 sits well above the $2,000 mark, and you're paying for a very specific set of features that only a subset of users truly need. If you primarily game at 1080p or 1440p, or you don't have a graphics card capable of pushing 4K at 60 frames per second with HDR, you'll be bottlenecked and the monitor's strengths become moot. Likewise, office workers or casual gamers who just want a decent monitor for browsing and occasional media consumption will find the extra brightness, color space, and GSync overhead unnecessary. Cheaper 4K IPS panels from other brands will give you comparable sharpness at a fraction of the cost. There are also practical trade-offs that show up after you plug the thing in. The power draw is significant. The X27 can pull over 250W at full brightness, which not only bumps up your electricity bill but also adds heat to the room. If you're in a small office or a bedroom, You'll want to make sure the ventilation around the monitor is adequate, otherwise you'll feel the warmth after a few hours of heavy HDR gaming. The monitor's stand, while adjustable for tilt and height, is fairly bulky, making desk clearance tighter than on slimmer models. I also found that the OSD, on-screen display, menu, although feature-rich, can be a bit slow to navigate, especially when you're trying to toggle between gaming presets and color grading profiles.